I feel like Uros Medic's weakness is someone who's a better southpaw fighter than him. And I'm not talking about those fighters who switch orthodox and southpaw. Those are... What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, y'all, we are going over the upcoming fight between Geoff Neal and Uros Medic. But before we get any further into the video, make sure you guys like and subscribe if you guys like seeing the content like this. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. Now, looking at Geoff Neal's last 5 fights, I wouldn't say it hasn't been looking bad, but it hasn't been looking like the best. He has some pretty decent wins, and he has some pretty decent fights. Looking at his last fight against Carlos Practice, he lost that fight in the last second of the first round, but I feel like I know why. So at first, he started off good. He was pressuring Carlos Practice with his boxing, but I feel like he just kept getting hit with those leg kicks that ended up wearing him down a little bit. And then towards the end, Carlos Practice do that spinning elbow, but Geoff Neal, he didn't block his temples. His temples was open, so it was blocked. It was blocked. He blocked, but it didn't block his temples where he got hit. And then he ended up getting put to sleep in the last second. I feel like he can do better in this fight. Not get hit with those leg kicks, and make sure to fully block. Make sure I feel like that's what he needs to do. But looking at his last win against RDA, and if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Rafael dos Santos, it was a good win, but Rafael dos Santos, the fight had to get stopped because Rafael dos Santos got a leg injury in that fight when Geoff Neal clipped him, and the fight was over. I wouldn't say he got lucky coming into that fight because he was already beating him from the start anyways. But I definitely would say that it was just a random finish. But then looking at his close loss to Ian Machado Gary. That was a close fight. It was so close where I didn't know who won or who did it. I was like, I'm going to just leave it up to the judges. Ian ended up getting that win. There were times in that fight where Geoff Neal had freaking pressured him with his boxing, and Ian had trouble knowing what to do. And people forget how good Geoff Neal is at wrestling. He might not be the best wrestler or submission artist, but he has good wrestling. Because you guys remember that fight, he kept reversing positions against the cage. He kept reversing back, having him against the cage. I remember one point in the fight, they were just having a battle between reversing and reversing in that fight. I don't know if you guys watched it. The people watching it should know. But if you haven't watched the fight, you gotta look into the fight because that was a good fight. Then looking at his loss to Southpaw, I feel like he only lost that fight from that submission. Like, that fight was close for where he could have possibly won, but it was like towards the end where Southpaw got him with that choke. I feel like that's when people forget how good of a wrestler Geoff Neal was. I think it was that fight. But then we look at his last fight, which I think was his best performance he ever did in the UFC against Vicente Luque, first person to ever knock him out in the UFC. He did really good. It was another good fight, but then he hit him with that good clean shot that dropped him in the fight, that knocked him out, and the fight was over. People forget, because if you look at his win against Bilal, that was an impressive win. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, he was the underdog for that fight. So he proved that he has good wrestling, and he uses his heavy pressure boxing to beat him by unanimous decision. That's why I feel like people forget. People just forget the good days where people are like, okay, Geoff Neal, he can compete with wrestlers, but then all of a sudden when he loses to Southpaw, he's like, oh, he's no longer a good wrestler no more. Let's forget he ever was a good wrestler. You guys can't forget that because he got submitted from Southpaw, but Southpaw has a 100% submission rate. So it's like you can't really get mad about that. It would have been different if Southpaw was not a good submission artist. He just submitted Geoff Neal, and then people be like, okay, he's not a good wrestler. That's different. But Southpaw is a great submission artist, so we can't just say that the whole Geoff Neal loss that Geoff Neal had and be like, oh, let's forget he ever was a good wrestler. It's like, huh? It would have been different if he got submitted from someone like Jack Della Mandolina. Even though Jack has some pretty good wrestling, but Geoff Neal has better wrestling, so it would have been different if that was to happen. But, bro, that did it. He got submitted from Shapscott. And we gotta just accept the fact that Shapscott's a really good submission artist. But now, we look at Uros Medic's wins and losses. He beat Muslim Salikov. Then he beat Gilbert Urbina, both in the first round, 63 seconds. 2 impressive knockouts. But then look at it, his loss to Punili Sarano. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, the name's right up top here. Just in case y'all don't know who I'm talking about. And maybe you guys are like, maybe I know the name, but he's probably not saying it right, because I sometimes don't say names right. He got ended in 31 seconds in that fight. 31. And they were starting off technical. All of a sudden, he comes out of nowhere with that freaking punch. That just so happened to finish him. Then if you look at Medic's win against Tim Means, that's a pretty solid win. But Tim Means, you gotta be honest, Tim Means should retire, and so should Muslim Salikov. They're both, I would say past their prime. They're old, and I just think they should just retire. And then if we look at but if we look at that fight, he looked really good in that fight. That was probably his best, well not his best performance, but one of the best performances I've ever seen from Medic. And if we look at his loss to Orbal, and if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, the name's also right here. Yeah, I feel like Medic kind of got tired from him being pressed against the cage with that wrestling. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like that's how he mainly lost, because he was getting Orbal. He was beating him. He was beating the dog out of him for that first round. Then he just got pressed against the cage and just got tired. But here's what I'm gonna say. I feel like Uros Medic's weakness is someone who's a better southpaw fighter than him. And I'm not talking about those fighters who switch orthodox and southpaw. I don't count those. I'm talking about fighters who just fight in southpaw, like Jalen Turner and Peniel Serrano. He got finished in the first round by both of them. Yeah, he lost to Orbal. Orbal is an orthodox fighter, and it took him the second round to do that. And Geoff Neal is a really good southpaw, especially when he's really good. He has really good boxing, especially as a southpaw. I don't think Uros Medic can handle that power. I'm gonna be honest. But another thing I also will say is that I don't know if Geoff Neal comes to this fight 100%. Not that he's on steroids or nothing, but if you look at his last fight, Coach Practice came off a knockout and got hit clean. A lot of fighters, their comeback fight after getting hit clean like that, it usually doesn't turn out good. And I don't know, I wouldn't say it's 100% Geoff Neal wins this fight, but I feel like if he didn't get knocked out clean by Carl's Practice, I would definitely have different feelings about Medic actually winning and Geoff Neal just dominating him. I think if he didn't get hit clean by Carl's Practice, maybe it will be one-sided Geoff Neal, but he's coming off a clean knockout, losing to Carl's Practice. So that's why I say it's more 50-50. But now, who do I got winning this fight? I got Geoff Neal winning this by a close decision win. This is a possibility for Medic to win, but I do feel like Medic just be trying to go for early stoppages sometimes. And Geoff Neal, I feel like he learns when people go for early stoppages. He'd be like, yeah, I'm going to just be technical and not let that happen. Then by the later rounds, he knocks you out. But that's my final prediction. Geoff Neal by a split decision win. Let me know in the comments who do you got winning this fight. But for now, I'm out. Bye.